Similar circumstances. Same city, same name, different outcomes. The book The Other Westmore, One Name, Two Fates, the author Westmore writes about two boys with the same name but different fates. Optically, Westmore and Westmore grew up in and with similar circumstances, but their lives ended up completely different. In this book, it is important to think about the similar circumstances because it is important to see how similar the boys' lives actually were. If the readers don't understand the similar circumstances about the boys' lives, they won't get the meaning of the book. If you don't see the similar circumstances between the boys, the book would just be about two boys with the same name. There wouldn't be any special reasons for writing the book about two people with the same name. In the book, the Westmores are both young kids who live in Baltimore, Maryland, that are growing up in very similar circumstances. They both grew up in the hood with only a single mother and no fathers. Their mothers both brought guys in and out of their lives. With living in the hood meant the boys would both be around drugs too. The boys both didn't do so great in school. They always had low grades or were failing. Another thing the boys both had were a family that cared about them and always wanted the best for them. Their mothers, siblings, and grandparents always tried to steer them in the right direction, but most of the time that did not work. Similar circumstances is what this essay is going to be focusing on. Similarities between the boys are very significant. It is important to pay attention to the similarities because the book wouldn't make sense. Their similar circumstances that are most important is the boys' family. The family situation is about the same between them. By focusing on the similarity between the family, you will understand it and notice and wonder why the boys ended up so differently. The boys had the same name and grew up in the same neighborhoods doesn't mean they were to have similar fates. Westmore, the author, his father passed away when he was only 3, so he grew up without a father with a single mother. Westmore had a father, but he was a drunk and an addict, so he grew up without a father and a single mother as well. This is something both Moore and West had in common. Moore writes West was a man in the house. Then Moore also writes she needed a man in the house. With both of the boys' fathers being gone, the boys felt they had the responsibility for being the man of the house, to protect their mothers and siblings. Putting that kind of responsibility on a young boy's shoulders can be hard on them. The good thing was that the boys did have father figures in their lives, but they weren't the best influences on them. Wes's father figure in his life was his drug dealer older brother Tony. Moore's father figure in the beginning of the story was the memories he had of his father. Wes Moore brother Tony tried to steer West in the right when he was West's brother Tony tried to steer West right when he was still dealing drugs. Tony was a bad influence on West. Moore writes, if someone disrespects you, you send a message so fierce that they won't have the chance to do it again, said by Tony to West. Tony encouraged West to do things that could hurt people, unlike Moore's father. Moore's father taught him to be kind and respectful. Moore writes about how his father told him, man, you can't just hit people, and particularly women. You must defend them, not fight them. Even though the boys both have father figures, Wes's figure wasn't great and didn't teach him right from wrong, but Moore's did. The boys' mothers were both strong women and didn't let anyone hurt her family. Her boys were their babies and they meant the world to them. They are both very strong women because they have been through a lot. They both had drunk men who fathered their children. Moore's mom got married at a young age and when she was a junior in college to a man named Bill. Bill turned out to be abusive, and Moore writes, if you try that shit, I will kill you, said by his mother after Bill tried to abuse her. His mother was very strong, and Moore also wrote, my mom vowed to never let another man put his hands on her. From that moment on, she became a strong and stern woman that raised Moore. Wes's mother went through similar things. Wes's and Tony's fathers, Moore writes how Wes's mom was left. Mary was left with 2 alcoholic, abusive men who shared the DNA of her 2 children, but no husband or dad for her boys. With both of their mothers having similar trouble with men, it created strong women that would know how to discipline their boys. Throughout the book, the boys constantly get disciplined by their mothers, and their mothers weren't afraid to do it. When Moore starts acting up and starts becoming bad, his mother decides to send him off to military school so he can be whipped into shape. when Wes's mom found his drugs in her house, and she went and dumped more than $4,000 of drugs down the toilet and told him, "I don't want to see it in here again." The mothers did not take any crap from their boys, and they always disciplined them when they did something wrong. They were good moms to their boys, and they loved them and wanted the best for them. Moore and West's mothers both valued education. They always wanted good education for their children. They wanted that because they never got the opportunity for good education. Clearly, both of the mothers want the best for their sons, and they want them to do something with their lives and not live in poverty forever. The boys' mothers both made the boys attend school. Moore went to a fancy private school in the Bronx because his mother knew there wasn't anything good in the public schools there. Wes went to a public school in Baltimore because that's all his mother could afford. The boys still both failed and didn't care about school. Moore and Wes had very loving families that cared about them a lot. Something the boys both liked were their grandmas. Moore got to live with his grandma for a while they were still living in the Bronx. Wes got to visit his grandma every now and again when his mom would go out at night. They both loved their grandmas because they both spoiled them. Moore writes about how Wes liked going over to his grandma's because his father's mother spoiled him. Moore as well liked going to his grandmother's house because they spoiled us like crazy. The boys' grandmothers spoiling them both gave them a good feeling and they liked it. It's good to be spoiled sometimes, and that is just what the grandparents do. I know mine do. Grandparents spoiling them allowed them to take their mind off of the lives they had. When they spent time with their grandmas, it was like they were the only two in the world. Their grandmas were very important to them. The boys' lives were very similar, including their family lives. They were put into many of the same situations and sometimes even dealt with the situations the same way. The question is, how did the boys end up so differently if they had many similar circumstances? Being fatherless, growing up in Baltimore, having a single mother, and constantly living in poverty all played a big factor in why the boys ended up so differently. One ended up successful and one ended up in jail, but someone asked how and why. The similar circumstances play a factor in answering those questions. The boys ended up so different because one had drive and wasn't a follower and didn't care what other people thought of his image. Moore, the author of the book, was the one with the drive. He wanted to make his mother proud and also his father and grandparents, and his mother sent him off to military school. He found his path and took it. He began to excel and he liked it. He wanted to better himself now for him and not just his family. Moore ended up graduating, joining the army, and then even going to college and even graduating college with his master's. Moore ended up so successful because he had drive and he wanted to be successful. Wes, on the other hand, didn't end up so successful at all. He ended up just like his brother Tony, a big drug dealer in the game. He ended up like that because he had no drive, and when he did, he would just crush his own dreams. Wes thought all he could ever do was be a drug dealer, nothing more, because everything else was too hard to do. Wes didn't fail because of his mother or Tony. He failed because he didn't believe in himself and have the drive like Moore did. If he didn't have the drive and willpower, there would be two very successful Wes Moores from Baltimore, not just one. Wes failed because he failed himself. Growing up in the hood, blocks away, the two boys named Wes Moore ended up with completely different lives. They both grew up in Baltimore, they both didn't do so well in school, and they both had drugs in their lives. Their lives were filled with similar circumstances, but they ended up completely different. The question why the boys ended up so different might run through your head. They ended up differently because Moore believed in himself, unlike Wes. Growing up in a drug and poverty-filled city shouldn't hold the kids back. They shouldn't grow up believing they are going to end up like Wes or his brother Tony. They need to be taught they can be whatever they want and let nothing hold them back. If they want something, they should go for it. The sad thing is that kids are not taught this. They are taught and witnessed that you do whatever you need to do to get through life, and there's no successful people from Baltimore. They are taught they do not have freedom. We need to teach them they do have freedom. Moore wrote, "Boys who come after us will know this freedom. It is up to us, all of us, to make a way for them." The boys grew up in similar circumstances, but that doesn't mean they ended up the same. Westmore was taught about his freedom, and that is why he was successful in life.